Giannis Antetokounmpo will be the greatest player ever to never win an NBA championship, that is. Now, a lot of people might be quick to dismiss that statement and ask, how could you make such a senseless assessment considering Giannis is still so young for an NBA player? He just won MVP last year, and this year he's led the Bucks to the best record in the NBA. And to many people, he's still vastly improving and ascending as a player. How could you make that assessment? All I'm asking for is for you to hear my argument out, and who knows, maybe at the end of this video, you might be more inclined to agree with me. All I know is that I feel so confident in saying that I'll be proven right that Giannis will never win an NBA championship. Why? Well, let's find out. Episode 3 of Set the Record Straight, starting now. One of the most satisfying feelings and one of the things I pride myself on the most as a sports analyst is seeing things before they actually happen, telling people that these, things are actually going to happen and watching these events unfold before our very eyes. And this is the case here. My argument does come with one contingency though. I say that Giannis will never win an NBA championship in his career if and only if he chooses to stay in Milwaukee and the team constructed around him remains relatively the same with Chris Middleton as his number 2. But let's begin with Giannis and the major flaws that I see in his game. Let's begin with the 2018 to 2019 NBA regular season. Giannis was averaging 28 points per game at a field goal percentage of just under 60%. What happened in the playoffs? Well, in the playoffs, that 28 points per game dropped to 25.5 points per game, and that virtually 60% field goal percentage dropped to 48.9%. I mean, why did his efficiency take such a hit? Why did it drop by 10% at a time when, teams need their best players to not only perform at their regular season averages, but even exceed those averages to come into the clutch? Why? Well, it's a combination of many things. As someone whose large portion of his points come from driving in and bodying up in the paint, you must consider and come to expect less calls from the refs in the playoffs. That means some of the free throws and calls that you're accustomed to because of the regular season, those free throws will be taken away. Secondly, a less diversified game and skill set kills you in the playoffs, especially if you're one-dimensional in the way that Giannis is. Not only do teams make a stronger and more concerted effort to take away what you do best in the playoffs, which is why having counters and other moves you can go to is a good idea to have, but when you look at Giannis's game, it's not fit to dominate in a multitude of different fashions. So because the Bucks depend on and run their entire offense through Giannis, who's still limited and very raw offensively, this makes it easy for opposing teams, especially in the playoffs, to scheme defenses against the Bucks. In the Eastern Conference Finals last year against the Raptors, Nick Nurse deployed the wall on Giannis, who was never able to break through it. The game slows down in the playoffs, making this scheme easier to employ schematically because your defense has time to set up. Because Giannis's damage must be done so close to the basket and in the paint, this plays right into teams' hands who utilize the wall, because the deeper and closer you get to the basket, the more that driver will be met with multiple bodies. If your best player, who you depend on too much, can do absolutely zero damage away from the rim, I'm sorry, but you're screwed. Now let's move on to Chris Middleton, who I believe, as I previously mentioned, is unfit to be Giannis's sidekick. In the age of duo tandems ruling the NBA, Chris Middleton might seem as the prototypical wing to place next to Giannis because he's a long wing who can shoot the 3 really well, he can score off the dribble, he has an ISO game, and he can defend really well. He might seem as the perfect fit to place next to Giannis, theoretically. But in reality, Chris Middleton is just one of those guys who does not perform in big games on big stages when the Bucks need him the most. His track record is self-evident. Just for context, in the 2018 to 2019 regular season, he averaged 18.2 points per game. When the Bucks needed him the most, which was in the Toronto series when the Raptors and Kawhi neutralized and exposed Giannis with the wall, that's when you need your quote-unquote prototypical wing to get you buckets and close the gap. But instead of rising to the occasion when the ball was in his hands and the opportunity presented itself, he severely underwhelmed, averaging just 13.6 points per game in that series. Talk about disappointing. Disappointing is an understatement. Simply put, his playoff performances just haven't been consistent enough, especially in the biggest of moments. Now on to the last point that further illustrates my case, the loss of Malcolm Brogdon. He was the Bucks' X factor because other than Chris Middleton, who obviously can't be relied on too much in these situations, added diversity to the team with his offensive game that was much needed. Brogdon didn't fall into the category of the one-dimensional catch and shoot, dependent on Giannis role player for the Bucks. He was another pillar they could lean on, another player who could get his own by driving to the basket, shooting the mid-range shot off the dribble, play the pick and roll pretty nicely, alleviate ball handling responsibilities off of Giannis's back, be a fearless defender, and shoot the three ball at a high percentage. I mean, it baffles me to this day how and why they could let Malcolm Brogdon walk. If you would have told me that Chris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Malcolm Brogdon was your core group of guys moving forward and going forward for the Bucks, maybe my assessment on Giannis not being able to win a championship would be different. These Milwaukee Bucks teams in recent years that have been built around Giannis, who's a great player, don't get it twisted, I still think he's a great player. They've led to an abundance of wins and a bunch of regular season success. But that's regular season success. What I'm referring to in this argument specifically is Giannis's legacy as a champion. Will he be a champion? Will he not be a champion? What I foresee is that he won't be if he stays with the Bucks and if the team around him stays the same. I just don't see it because of everything that he and the organization as a team lacks. I hate to be the one that spares the tragic news, but the truth hurts sometimes, and the truth is that Giannis will be left empty-handed, and that's how you set the record straight.